Welcome back, guys. Today, we're going to look at the causes of the French Revolution. All right, we're going to group them into 4 categories. All right, we're going to look at what made the people of France go, we don't want you in charge anymore. And the French government go, ah, and then people's heads start getting cut off. Then Napoleon happened. Boom, French Revolution in 20 seconds. But we're going to go more in depth. Today, we're going to start looking at the causes. In order to do that, we got to organize our notes. We're going to do this via foldable, as usual, for me, the foldable guy. So, take a sheet of paper, take the outsides, fold them so that they meet in the middle. All right? So once they're folded and creased, take something, cut from here to the fold. Don't cut all the way across. Cut to the fold, do the same thing on this side, cut to the fold, and you will then have the 4 flaps that you're going to need to take today's notes. So, your foldable should, the front of your foldable should look similar to this, except it will be a rectangle. Why I drew mine as a square, I will never know. But, causes of the French Revolution, the title of your foldable, and then you're going to look at the 4, like I said, groupings that we have. We have the 3-estate system, ideas, political, and economic. So these are the 4 ways that you can group these causes of the French Revolution. And the first one we're going to look at is the 3-estate system. And under the 3-estate system flap, you're just going to draw a chart. And we're going to go more in depth to the 3-estate system when we delve into the notes. But we're just going to draw a chart under that flap. Okay? So your chart is going to start like this. And I am going to use 3 different colors. If you don't have 3 different colors, you just make your graph look different. But I'm using 3 different colors. And I've labeled what each of the 3 colors represent. So, for me, red is the first estate, or the clergy, which is another fancy word for church. Blue, the nobles, or the rich people. That is your second estate. And green is everybody else. Anybody that didn't fall into one of these 2 estates is in this green third estate. All right, so we're going to look at the first estate first. And we're going to do this through this graph right here. All right, the top portion of this graph is going to represent population. The bottom portion of this graph is going to represent how much control of the land in France that they have. So how much land in France did they control versus the population. So this graph right here is 100% of France. 100% of the population at the top, 100% of the controllable land at the bottom. Okay, so the first estate, clergy. Church, specifically the Catholic Church, in France at this time makes up a whopping 1%. 1%. All right, and so right here at the beginning, I'm just going to it doesn't have to be perfect, but 1%. Okay, for those that can't see mine, boom, 1%. Okay, so a resounding 1% of the population of France controls 10% of the land. So at the bottom, again, in the red, because we're talking about the first estate or the clergy, %10 of the land. So we move on to the second estate, the nobles, the rich people. Now, this group is larger than the Catholic Church, so much so that they double the first estate. They make up 2% of France. So again, in what I have blue for the second estate, we draw what we estimate 2% to be. So 2% of the French population controls, just like it doubled in population, it doubled in the amount of land control that they had. So they control 20%. Okay? And so that means that the third estate, which I have representing in green, controls all is the remainder of the population and controls the remainder of the land or 70%. Now, you may be saying, hey, that's a lot. That's a lot of land that they have. Well, their 97% of the population is 25 million people. And you're looking at 25 million people and you're trying to fit them into 70% of the land in France, which, by the way, not all of it is livable land. So you got a portion of the 70% that they have that can't be lived on. All right, this could be because there's a factory there. Roads, lakes, cliffs, mountains, whatever. All kinds of reasons. But it's land that's not livable. So really, that 70% isn't a completely accurate number. All right? So now, I'm going to pull the screen down because we're going to look at the PowerPoint. And I will come back to that for those that didn't have the opportunity to finish drawing their whole graph. But the next one we're going to look at is the idea causes of the French Revolution. Once I get my screen to load. Okay. All right, and so the causes of the revolution, the French Revolution, can again be broken down into 4 causes. The one that we just looked at, and then the following 3 are ideas, political causes, and economic causes. So the first one we're going to look at are your idea causes. Now this goes under your idea causes flap. And these are the Enlightenment ideas. The ideas coming out of the Enlightenment where all men should have certain freedoms, liberal freedoms. There's freedoms that are born to them. People should have the right to remove a government that is unfair or unjust or isn't looking out for their well-being. Equality for all. Everybody is equal. This, in France, is talking about monetarily. The poor and the rich should have the same rights. The members of the clergy and the regular population should have the same rights. And we're going to talk about what some of those rights are moving forward. But everyone should be equal. And then another idea cause is the United States Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. France helps the colonies win the war because Great Britain is their rival. They go and help the colonies win the war, which is ironic because if the American Revolution had failed, the French Revolution probably never happened. So if France had just minded their business, probably wouldn't have been a French Revolution. If France had just minded their business, let the American colonies go about this revolution in the Americas, probably would not have been a war in France. The next one we're going to look at, this goes under your political causes flap, is politics, mainly King Louis XVI. And he's a weak individual. He's just a weak leader. He didn't want to be in authority. He delegated authority often, didn't want to make decisions, really wasn't capable of making a decisive action, deciding one way or the other what he was going to do. Then he marries a woman that's not even French. They're from Austria. And their marriage was supposed to be a political alliance. It was supposed to stop the fighting between Austria and France. So King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, they get married. You know, him not being able to make decisions, plus Marie Antoinette's luxurious style of living and having an unlimited credit card in the form of France, and being able to buy whatever she wants, kind of just makes people not like them. It makes people not like them. And Louis XVI is awkward. He's clumsy. But the irony is that he really did want what was best for France and the French people. He just happened to be in a really bad place at a really bad portion of French history. But he couldn't relate to these people. He wasn't able to articulate very well. He couldn't get his thoughts, out of his mouth the way that he understood them in his head. And so he struggled with relating to people. He often, because he struggled with public speaking, he often came across as if he just didn't care. It wasn't appealing. People didn't want him to be in charge. He was heard asking if he could resign from being king. If he, can I resign? I don't want to be king no more. Which nobody wants to hear from their person that is in charge. And so it just adds to this dislike. And then there's Marie Antoinette, who is very irresponsible. Very irresponsible. But she's 14. King Louis was probably 15 or 16 when they get married. And she just all of a sudden has access to unlimited amounts of money. And then what she does, what a 14-year-old girl does, she goes to the mall and she buys everything. She gets a new dress almost every single day. It is believed that Marie Antoinette never wore the same dress twice. She had 2 closets, one for dresses she had worn, one for dresses she had worn. And the dresses in closet B never got worn again. And they never got put back in closet A. And then, so this irresponsibility combined with already being Austrian just made them as a couple to be very, very, very unliked. And they live in this just elaborate palace. So you're looking at a time where the regular people of France are struggling. She's spending all the money. They're living in this beautiful palace outside of Paris. He can't talk, even though he feels bad for the people of France, he doesn't come across that way. And so lastly, we're going to look at the economic causes. And the economic causes, quite frankly, go down to the fact that the French economy is bankrupt. They are broke. They get involved in wars in Europe, then they go and get involved in the American Revolution to help the colonists, and war is expensive. War is expensive. So war combined with the king and queen's lifestyle doesn't really add up to a lot of money. It doesn't equate to a lot of money for France. And so the people of France are suffering as a result. The rich people didn't have to be taxed. So the rich people who had the money to pay taxes didn't have to be. They weren't taxed. So all of that tax burden falls on the regular people. The people who already were struggling. Now all of a sudden their taxes are going up while the rich people are not paying taxes. They're not paying taxes. And then around this time, crops fail. France goes through a historic drought. Still to this day. And it just so happens right around the time of the French Revolution. But the crops fail. Half of their budget is not even paying off the debt. It's just paying the interest alone. And so the regular people, or the bourgeoisie as they were called, start to question the king. The king and the queen are not suffering. The nobles and the rich people are not suffering. The church and the clergy is not suffering. But it is the regular, everyday 97% of the French population that is suffering as a result of these economic downfalls. So we're going to stop here, but we're going to continue to kind of look into these issues, and you should already start to see how this is building a foundation for a lot of animosity. It's just a fuse that's already been lit. It's a fuse that's been lit, and it's starting to get to that bomb, and it's going to explode in the form of the French Revolution. Now, I mentioned earlier that if France had minded their own business and not gotten involved in the American Revolution, one could argue the French Revolution never happens. You're going to complete a reading on the American Revolution and answer some questions. I'm not going to talk about the American Revolution very much, so make sure that you pay attention to that reading. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me, and as always, you have a great day.